The Earnestly Speaking podcast is a show that is founded on free-flowing conversation and may at times venture into mature subjects. Listener discretion is advised.
Earnestly Speaking podcast coming to you on Tuesday, July 11th, 2023. As we approach the afternoon here, it is actually, as I record this, about to be noon. Quiet house, actually, here, because both my kids were at summer camp for the week. Although they're not staying there the entire week. They're there for a couple hours, I think from 8 or 9 to 3 every day this week, and then back home. You know, got time to myself. Wife's at work. So it's a quiet household. So it feels like school kind of got into the school routine this week a little bit. School is about 4 weeks away for them. So we're actually at the midway point of the summer now. It's been nothing but rain every day since school ended in late May. But it's been a good time though for the most part. Like I said, you know, go to the pool every day. We do activities here and there. With my wife's schedule, it's quirky at times because, like, you know, she works mostly nights, I work mostly days, and opposite schedules on that. So we try to make it work as possible on days we're home with the kids. It's been challenging at times with the weather, but they've been okay. And the summer camp, of course, they enjoyed the first day yesterday. So they obviously, we'll see how that goes the rest of the week. So we get a little bit of a inch back closer to school, to the school routine, what I normally do here, especially with the podcast throughout the year. Tuesdays and Thursdays are my days. I can record. Tuesdays and Thursdays are my days where I, you know, get these shows out, and even during the summer we've been able to do that. So, but we got a lot to talk about on the show today. I'm going solo today as well too. I guess Damian Lillard watch is still waiting to see what happens there. There's been no updates really on that. Although Joe Cronin, the Blazers general manager, made a statement yesterday on Twitter, which kind of caught my eye a little bit, and it made me think that maybe we're getting closer to a deal. Sometimes when you look at these things, you got to read between the tea leaves when it comes to that. He basically said, when asked about his request to be traded, you know, he goes, as a team, you always hoped that you have more options. To have limited options like that, I wouldn't call it frustrating, but prevents you from perhaps getting the best return. Like I said, you know, I'm a Heat fan. Obviously, I want Dame here. Dame wants to go to Miami and solely Miami based on request. You know, and people keep saying that, you know, the Heat and their what they can offer is the worst package. And I disagree for one reason. Because if it was the worst package, then why aren't there other packages out there being thrown in the mix? You know, are being said. It's probably the worst package because it's probably the only package right now. Like, other than maybe Brooklyn get involved to make it a 3-team deal, or 4 or 5 teams get involved to make this thing work, the only package that Portland has gotten, pretty much, I believe, is the Heat package. Okay? So, if you want to call it the worst deal, fine. But it's probably the only package. Because Philadelphia, for example, who were thought of to be in the mix, has already said that they don't want to throw in anything involving Tyrese Maxey. So, you can't say the Heat package is the worst package. It's probably the only package, but that's about it. So, we're still in a stalemate. In terms of where they're at now, the only thing I saw in the last 24 hours involving the possible deal is basically saying multiple teams interested in trading a first-round pick for Hero to facilitate the Dame Miami deal. Brooklyn's one of those teams, obviously. There's word that other teams might be interested in adding, you know, in taking Tyler Hero, because clearly what we've been told and what's been said is that the Blazers have no interest in Tyler Hero. They want assets. They want picks. So that's the holdup. But I think personally, this deal get done. There's been word today that said that the Blazers are willing to wait months to get this deal done. I doubt it'll go that long. I think at some point it is what it is. And if teams know that Lillard does not want to almost play Miami, I think that will spear off teams away from wanting to make a deal to go for a guy that's not really interested in playing in that market. I think the only trade historically that's kind of comes to close to that, where a guy went somewhere he didn't want to go, but went anyway, was Kevin Garnett going to Boston. But that situation was a little more unique, I guess, too. So, in terms of Dame Lillard, there's been a lot of conversations also too about Lillard and, is he the greatest Blazer of all time and all that. I did a poll yesterday on Sunday rather on Twitter about that. Is Dame Lillard the greatest Portland Trailblazer of all time? Now, I think it's debatable. I don't even agree. I think Clyde Drexler is the greatest Blazer of all time, because I think if you include team accomplishments and include everything that's been done, technically based on accomplishment of the team, the only NBA championship they ever won was in 1977 with Bill Walton. And so technically, if we're going based on rings and accomplishments, Bill Walton has the case to be the greatest Blazer of all time. The problem is he only played 4 years there. And he was injury riddled. Okay, and we know the history of Bill Walton. Bill Walton is, smaller sample size, one of the greatest centers of all time. But because of his injury history, he doesn't get recognition for that. And it makes sense. Okay, in terms of totality and looking at it in a broader aspect, I will still say Clyde Drexler, because those Blazers teams were really good for those in most of those 11 years he was there, or 12 years he was there. He went to 2 finals in that era. That team was, especially in the late 80s or 90s. I spoke on this podcast a couple days ago about how those Blazers teams underwhelmed in some ways, because they should have at least got one ring. They losing to Detroit in 1990, losing to Chicago in 1992. That they underwhelmed. Dame Lillard has a case. I will lean Clyde, but Dame Lillard might be the best individual talent of the three when you include the sample size. Lillard's gone to one conference final, was in 2019. He's certainly, an all-time great. Where do you put Dame Lillard and Clyde Drexler on a top on an all-time list? That's the question. I might put Clyde higher than Dame, but I think it's closer than people give credit for. I did the poll, as I said, on Sunday, and the poll was closed, and I asked the question about, is Dame Lillard the greatest Blazer of all time? And most people agree with that. 61% of the people in the poll said that he is the greatest Blazer of all time, whereas 39% said no. So it's a little closer than I thought it would be. But I guess, a lot of these voters also are probably millennials and didn't watch Clyde Drexler in his prime. Clyde was fantastic. But again, it is what it is. In terms of that, I will still lean Clyde. But I think it's closer to people give credit for. I think Dame Lillard is a phenomenal talent. And I also think it's harder for Lillard to win in that era. Because we say, Clyde, harder for Clyde to win because of Jordan. That might have been the case. But Dame Lillard, played the era where you had LeBron. You had Steph Curry. You had awesome Spurs teams in the early mid-aughts. So you had a lot of those teams that, and let's be real, Portland did not, that market, back then where free agency wasn't a thing really until the 90s, teams were able to keep talent and hoard talent. Today, Portland can't attract any talent. Who is the big name free agent they've gotten in the history of the league? History meaning the league, you can't name it. Dame Lillard was drafted by the team. Bill Walton was drafted by the team. Clyde Drexler was drafted by the team. So Portland had a hard time competing with other teams because of market share, because of and for the record, Portland's a great basketball town, but players just don't want to go there on their own free will. And that's one reason why Dame Lillard is finally wised up and said, I want out. So that's that. But yeah, I will still leave Clyde, but it's a closer than people get it for. Today's also going to be probably the last heavy basketball episode for a while, because we are now officially into the dog days of summer. This week officially is the MLB All-Star break, so there's no sports on this week at all. Unless you're watching tennis, Wimbledon, and whatnot, or Summer League for the matter. But there's really nothing left really in basketball other than the Lillard situation, and James Harden too. Also, when he gets traded from Philadelphia, there's really nothing much in basketball to discuss outside Summer League. And now the other big story now that's coming to end now. Victor Wembanyama has been shut down officially after 2 games. The narratives on Wembanyama has been so annoying. It really has. his first game, he had 9 points in that game, something like I think a couple blocks and a couple of rebounds. He got a couple times, got toasted a couple times, and lots of the hype of the game. Of course, I understand why people are so into it, because this game was hyped up. He's the biggest prospect since LeBron, in the whole nine. Game 2 he played much better. He had 27 points, 12 rebounds, but the Spurs shut him down after 2 games. And it sounds like he's a little overwhelmed too, especially too with all the media blitz. He also just played basketball in France, like literally weeks ago. Like he was literally playing competitive basketball weeks ago, came to the States for the draft, and now he's doing summer league now. So maybe the guy needs a break. You know what I'm saying? I know he's 19 years old, and people are like, whatever. But people need to let this kid grow. Let him grow. Let him feel himself a little bit. But here's why I'm not worried. I'm not worried about Wembanyama for one reason. He's in the best situation possible. Playing with San Antonio. Playing with Greg Popovich, who just signed a 5-year extension 2 days ago. Pop got a new lease on life now. Okay? But let this kid grow. Let this thing cook a little bit, But here's what I'll say my takeaways on Wemby through 2 games. His immediate impact is going to be on defense right off the bat. The one thing you're going to notice about Wemby right off the bat is defensively, he'll make a strong impact on his team. Off the bat. He has a nice stroke, actually, for a 7'5" player. And eventually I can see him hitting that, people say he's not a shooter. I don't think he'll ever be a shooter, but he can hit that shot from outside with confidence. He has a nice stroke. And I think at some point, once you develop that stroke, I think you'll have no problem hitting from distance with the opportunities when it comes his way. Okay? He also, for a big guy, runs the floor very well. Yeah, he's 19 years old, but a lot of big guys don't run forward and say he runs like a guard almost. And from what I gather from those 2 games, he's a very unselfish player. He will pass the ball. He will get players involved, and that's good. I mean, if Popovich in a great Popovich offense, especially too, that's a good thing. So I think, look, let this kid cook, man. Let this kid, get an opportunity to, settle in a little bit. I think he'll sort of rookie of the year. Well, I mean, as long as he makes the requirements, 65 games requirement to do it. I don't want the Spurs to low manage him either, and I know that there's a temptation of doing that, but it doesn't work. Low management doesn't really work. Okay, look at Kawhi Leonard. For all the low management they've done the last couple of years with him, it's still been a failure in LA. So let the dude play. You know what I'm saying? Also, in the NBA, they just announced also a few days ago the NBA in-season tournament officially will launch this year. I'm going to read off the breakdown because I'm still trying to figure this out. Here it is, the in-season tournament will tip off on November 3rd with group play and concludes December 9th. Basically, it's a 5-week tournament. Wow. With the title game, the league announced Saturday, December 9th. All 30 teams will participate in a group stage in 3 groups of 5 teams within each conference. The groups were decided by a random draw during NBA Today on Saturday. Here are the groups. In the East, you have 3 groups in the East. Group A is the Sixers, Cavs, Hawks, Pacers, and Pistons. Group B is the Bucks, Knicks, Heat, Wizards, and Hornets. Group C is the Celtics, Nets, Raptors, Bulls, and Magic. And then the West, Group A is the Grizzlies, the Suns, the Lakers, the Jazz, the Blazers. Group B is the Nuggets, the Clippers, the Pelicans, the Mavericks, and the Rockets. And Group C is the Kings, Warriors, Timberwolves, Thunder, and Spurs. Group play will begin November 3rd, and all games will count towards regular season records and statistics. Each team will play 4 group games, 2 home games, and 2 road games. Group play games will be held only on Tuesdays and Fridays in November, except for November 7th, which is Election Day, and no games will be held. The group play schedule, along with national TV broadcast, will be released next month. The team with the best record in each group and the 2 wildcard teams will advance to the knockout stage. The wildcards will be the team in each conference that finished with the best record and in group play, but was second in its group. The knockout round consists of single elimination quarterfinals on December 4th and 5th, hosted by teams with the best group play record. The semifinals and title semifinals of the championship game will be held at T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas on December 7th and 9th. The championship game is the only game that will not count towards the regular season's record and statistics for the two teams that will count as game number 83, one more than every other team's 82-game slate. The teams that do not advance to the knockout round will play 2 additional games on December 6th and 8th to fill out their 82-game schedule. The teams that lose in the quarterfinals of the knockout round will play 1 additional regular season game on December 8th. A prize pool will be allocated to the teams advancing to the knockout round, and the champion earns the NBA Cup trophy. And then an MVP of the in-season tournament we named along with an all-tournament team based on performance throughout the group and knockout rounds. All right, so the thing that I was worried about initially when they first announced this idea was that this was going to be additional to the regular season. Apparently, they're building this into the regular season as well, too, which is fine. Good. Because they play enough games as this anyway. As a traditionalist, I really, honestly don't want to see this. I like my 82 game sample. Let me play my season out. 82 games, whatever. Make the playoffs. Call it a day. But I do understand that times are changing, progressive, everything else. This is done also in Europe with soccer. I'm actually somewhat intrigued. And my attitude today about things like this is I don't want to knock it until I try, until I actually see it for myself. When they initially did the play-in tournament back, when it started during COVID, when they the idea of doing the play-in tournament, I hated the idea. I thought, well, look, if you're a 7-8 seed, should be 7-8 seed, that's it. Call it a day. But I understood why they did it at the time. Okay? It was to make the teams at the bottom or in the middle play for something, I understood that. And now I actually love the idea. But now 3 years into the play-in thing, I love it. I think it's fantastic. I think it helps the business model for the league. It makes these teams in the middle play for something, for a chance to get into the playoffs. Who knows? It's more, and for me personally, as an NBA diehard, it's more games to watch. So I'm not complaining about that either. Okay. So with this, I'll give it a shot. Because at the end of the day, one thing I will say this will actually do for the NBA, especially at the time of the year this is going to happen, November, December, because even though the NBA starts in October, we all know that in America, in the sports parlance, that football dominates the eyeballs here during the fall. Not just NFL, but college football as well, too. You know me, and you know this podcast. We're heavy into football during the year. But I also talk basketball. We also know I'm a basketball diehard, so but I'm also the anomaly. I'll find a way to blend basketball as well, too. But as a populace, football reigns supreme here in this country between the months of September and January, into February for the Super Bowl. This format, this tournament may actually, I'm not going to say peel away some eyeballs, but it'll at least get folks to want to watch the NBA a little more because of a tournament. So this is why I believe they're doing this, especially the time of year doing it. Especially it's early enough in the year. It's during football season too, so it's an opportunity for people who like basketball but aren't necessarily don't care till after Christmas. This is an opportunity now to see if they can peel some eyeballs, get some eyeballs to watch the product. So from that aspect, from a business point of view, I don't hate it. And you know what? If it doesn't work, I see it going at least 2 years. And if in 2 years it doesn't work out, there's injuries, there's this and that, and there's no interest, then you can it. But my attitude now at 43 years old is that I'm not going to knock things just because I don't want my normality shaken up. If it's something that could work, it works in Europe, in soccer. I mean, why not try the NBA? I mean, we try it, and if it fails, I mean, we could at least say we did it. You know what I'm saying? So I'm not gonna knock it. I'm gonna let this thing cook a little bit, and we'll go from there. You know what I mean? So, like I said, I'm kind of looking forward to it a little bit now. We'll see where it goes, and that's just that. Speaking of basketball, one more basketball thing here. Dwight Howard, who's not in the NBA currently, who played, I think, Taiwan or Thailand, whatever it was. Dwight Howard made some comments a couple days ago regarding Nikola Jokic. You know, of course, Jokic winning his first ring about a month ago. Can't believe the finals been a month now already. Wow. He was discussing, you know, Nikola Jokic, and he basically said that he thinks in his prime, he was better in his prime than Jokic is. Here's his quote. He goes, obviously, people are going to say Jokic can score. He got all the offensive skills, but at the same time, I was getting 38 and 20, 45, 18, 19, 20, and I'm doing all this with twos, not threes, all twos. I'm doing this with lobs. I'm not getting a lot of post attempts like Jokic. He's getting way more opportunities, as I would say, as far as to show his low post game and all of that stuff. And I was just a different era. So people look at that and say, well, Jokic, he scores and does all this stuff. And no offense, I think he's great. I love Jokic. I don't want to I don't think people think I'm trying to hate even comparing. But I'm going to take myself. I know how dominant I was, and I know what I could do with my skills. And on the defensive side and on the offensive side, I was quick enough to get past everybody. Okay, so obviously people's reaction to this this quote. People say thought you know, basically I saw Stephen A. said something about staying off the weed and things of that nature. People are just saying like, Dwight, are you nuts? Here's what I'll say. Dwight's wrong, number one. I don't agree with him on this a bit. But here's what I will say to people who want to attack Dwight just because. We know Dwight Howard is very polarizing, especially the last 10 years. You know, his career has been one of the most polarizing players in the last 10 years because of the downfall, of course. Dwight Howard, in his peak, was actually considered a top 5 player in the league. Some may say top 3. This dude also won 3 Defensive Players of the Year. So on one side, I will say, if there's one argument I'll give to Dwight Howard here on this argument, is that defensively, he smokes Jokic. Defensively. In fact, if you go back to the bubble conference finals, like the Lakers and the Nuggets 2 years ago, all right, 3 years ago rather, so long already, 3 years, wow. Dwight was on the Lakers, and Dwight actually controlled Jokic pretty well. He did a good job on Jokic actually in that series. Now, granted, Dwight has more help. He has AD and of course LeBron, but Dwight did a very good job defensively on Jokic, and this is Dwight now way past his prime. Okay. Is also why I push back on that though with Dwight is that him saying that opportunities. You can't tell me you didn't have opportunities to get better. For years we said, people who covered the league, for years, myself, in my late 20s, early 30s, saying you need to develop a low post game. And you never really developed one. Whether or not that was Stan Van Gundy's fault, whether or not that was his fault, I put my onus on him because again, you're the leader. You know, and I don't think coaches are going to say don't develop a game because that would be stupid. But you didn't hit your ceiling because the optics look bad. It didn't seem like you put enough time into your game. That ultimately is why people don't respect you in the same way. That's what I would say about that. Okay, I think Dwight didn't put enough work in my opinion, beyond just what he did. And look, I'm the same guy that says Dwight Howard is a Hall of Famer. Okay, maybe not first ballot. Maybe he is first ballot. Who knows? Dwight's a Hall of Famer. Okay, I defend Dwight into the earth. But I would say that even though Dwight was dominant as a defensive player in Orlando and parts of LA and maybe even parts of Houston before his back went out, Nikola Jokic is leaps and bounds better. He's hit his ceiling. Maybe he has a little leap to go also too on top of that. Nikola Jokic is probably considered a top 20 player right now, all time. Okay? Dwight never got there. And to me, that's why I penalize Dwight more than anything else, because Dwight had the opportunity to add to his game. He never did that. And that's on him. That's not that, and that's why, yes, that's why Dwight, even with all he accomplished, with the defensive player of the years and all this stuff, and he never got to a ceiling because he did not put the work in. Bottom line. All right, so let's get to some football talk here. As you know, this time of year now we start to make this shift now from NBA to NFL. Because now the NBA is pretty much it's done. It's a summer league and a couple storylines, like I said earlier. Lillard and Harden and all that stuff. But the NFL's creeping on us now. We're 2 weeks away from training camp. So I'm starting to get a little excited about football now. And Michael Vick got me excited this week because he made a comment. He was on a podcast. I can't remember what show it was. Okay, but he was on a podcast. And he basically, talked about Andy Reid. Andy Reid, the coach of the Kansas City Chiefs, 2-time Super Bowl champion. Michael Vick played under Andy Reid for a couple years in Philadelphia when he had his comeback after getting out of prison for dogfighting. And basically, Andy Reid defends Andy Reid, saying that Andy Reid might be the greatest coach of all time. Here's his quote. Here's the audio.
I was actually thinking this year, like, after Andy won the Super Bowl, he only got 2, but he went to like 4 or 5 NFC championship games. Every year y'all was in the AFC championship game, or he was in the NFC championship game, or he was close. He might be one of the greatest coach of all time.
Bro, seriously,
you don't have to win championships to be considered. I understand Belichick and Brady and that whole dynamic, but Coach did it in Philly, and then he did it in he's doing it in KC. You know what I'm saying? I'm always shout out Coach. Like, I love that man to death. Like, for real. Literally, I'd do anything for him.
So there's always some bias there because Andy Reid actually saved Michael Vick's career. Vick, obviously playing in Atlanta, start his career, goes to jail for dogfighting, to prison for dogfighting, basically loses everything. Andy Reid takes a chance on him and gets out of prison, ends up winning the starting quarterback job for a couple of years. It was a good couple of years, and then he tailed off. So there's a lot of biases, of course, on Vick's end because of that. He's indebted to Andy Reid because he took a chance on him. But it is actually an interesting argument because you look at these guys. Both guys have had legendary quarterbacks. Of course, Belichick and Tom Brady, and of course, currently Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes doing what they're doing now. So currently, right now, based on this is where these two guys are at right now, career-wise. Right now, Bill Belichick is third all-time in victories and wins with 298. He'll get 300 this year. We assume, of course, unless the Pats suck, which I don't think they'll suck in the same way. Andy Reid is fifth all-time with 247. Bill Belichick has actually beaten Andy Reid in the Super Bowl. Super Bowl 30, was that 34? No. 39, I think it was. It was one in Jacksonville. One of the few times I actually rooted for the Patriots to win a Super Bowl. Can you believe that? But here's where I think the conversation becomes something to talk about, okay? Bill Belichick without Tom Brady, his record all-time is 79-87. Sub 500. 79-87. That's his years, obviously with the Browns in the mid-90s. And, of course, everything in the last couple of years post-Tom Brady in New England. However, Andy Reid's record without Patrick Mahomes, now granted, it's a bigger sample size here, 183 and 120 and one tie. Okay? Andy Reid has, and Andy Reid's been known for this for a long time too, also, has been able to take quarterbacks, whoever it was, Kevin Cobb or Jeff Garcia, but I'm not even going to bring up Damian Lillard. There's other quarterbacks, Alex Smith, you name it, got them over the hump and made them more than viable, above average quarterbacks for a good while. So, if there's an argument to be made, it's that one. But Andy Reid, where the feelings that Andy Reid has had in the past is more so, he's gone to a lot of title games. Like I said, he went to 4 title games in Philadelphia in the 2000s. Took him a while to get to the Super Bowl. He's had some failures too. Clock management issues, of course, with him as well. He's been known for. But I think if we have an argument about this right now, I think it's a fluid conversation. I think right now it's still Hoodie, it's still Belichick. But the thing I think I will say about Andy Reid is that he does have time to catch it, to make it a real argument. Bill Belichick won six championships with the Patriots. And yes, you can say Tom Brady's in that, but it doesn't matter. Those two still work together. Okay, it still worked. Tom Brady wasn't Tom Brady until past the 3 rings, okay? You can argue that Belichick was probably a little more important to that team because of they were so defensive-based for the first couple of years of Tom Brady's career in New England. Now, obviously, Tom Brady, you know how I feel about Tom Brady. He's the GOAT, this kind of thing, obviously. But I think this could be an argument in the years to come. And you have Pat Mahomes as your quarterback, obviously, that it improves your chances. In fact, I don't even have Andy Reid on my Mount Rushmore yet. He's not on my Mount Rushmore yet. To me, it's without even really thinking about it too hard. Belichick, Bill Walsh. I probably still put Don Shula there, maybe. Not really giving this a lot of thought. Andy Reid is inching closer. He's definitely top 10 coach all time. I will say that. Probably closer to 5 or 6 at this point. He's been doing this a long time. He's been still relevant and still consistent. Tom Landry. But he has time. And I don't even know if it will actually require 6 rings to do it. That's the thing also, too. Like, I was saying about Pat Mahomes during the summer after he won the Super Bowl. How, like, Brady has 7 rings and he's a GOAT. I got Mahomes right at 2 rings in the top 5 all time. It may not, in my opinion, it won't require Mahomes to get 7 rings to pass Brady, in my opinion, as greatest of all time. It may only require 3 or 4 rings because the talent of Mahomes supersedes everything else, makes up the gap, the ring gap. So I think it's a conversation to have. It's a good one. I'll still go hoodie, but I do think this is a fluid conversation that could be had if in 2-3 years, let's say the next 4 to 5 years, Andy Reid gets another two more Super Bowl titles. And even though around that, and let's say the other 3 years, they're still in the Final Four or go to the Super Bowl a couple of times on top of that, but lose. I would argue at that point, Andy Reid could be a greatest coach all time. Longevity. And then you look at everything I just said, though. The winning he did without Mahomes with lesser teams. It's not going to have. So it's not a bad one. But I'll still go hoodie number 1 still. Another football thing I saw this thing actually on Twitter the other day. Andrew Luck is actually next year, 2024. Andrew Luck will be eligible for the Hall of Fame. Andrew Luck played, I think, 6 years in the league. 6 years. He retired obviously because of a lot of injuries, and he just decided he just couldn't do anymore, couldn't take anymore. So we've had this conversation in the past. I remember when he retired, we discussed this on the show. Is he Hall of Fame eligible? When it happens, would you consider him Hall of Fame? And I don't remember the answer to this, but I remember saying to myself that this could be something that, in the moment, we may say no because he had enough years loaded in. But as time goes by, maybe we decide that maybe it's time to consider it. Here's what I'll say. Some of the numbers here I was reading makes the argument something to at least consider. So his stats over his first 6 years in NFL were nuts. By the way, he played more than 6 years actually. I think he played 7 or 8 years in the league, I think. Andrew Luck had 171 passing touchdowns, 3rd all time, trading only Dan Marino and Pat Mahomes in that 6-year span. He also passed for 23,671 yards, which is 4th all time behind, guess who? Mahomes, Marino, and Peyton Manning. He also averaged 275 passing yards per game, 3rd all time, trailing behind Matthew Stafford and, of course, Patrick Mahomes. Notice the trend there, Pat Mahomes there. The only thing that's going to hurt his chances getting to the Hall of Fame is lack of sample size. And the only comp we have to use as an argument to get him in there, despite lack of sample size, honestly, is Gale Sayers, who played only 7 years in the league, but he was one of the greatest running backs of all time. But injuries did him in. That could apply here, too, as well. Here's what I will say about Andrew Luck and all that. He won't get in the first ballot. That ain't happening. He ain't getting the first ballot. But I can see the argument for him. And honestly, if he gets in, I ain't gonna be mad about it. Because you can only judge by the time you played in the league. And what we know, based on these numbers, is that in the small sample he played in the league, he was dominant. He was really good. And he had some really, really below average. He had some really weird below average rosters with Indy in those years, and still got that team to a conference championship, regular playoff appearances and all that. So I'll be honest with you. It may not be the worst take in the world that gets in the Hall of Fame. But I think the only thing that hurts him is the lack of a sample size. That's the only thing that hurts him. So that's that. All right, some politics here, real quick. And I'm not going to do any of a deep dive here, but I was watching something yesterday on one of my political shows I watch. Donald Trump owning Ron DeSantis again, calling him over. This is this clip, dude. This look. I'm not a Trump guy, but listen to this clip real quick, and I'll react to it.
So I'm not a big fan of his, and he's highly overrated. He's highly overrated. Remember, he's the one that wanted to cut Social Security. He's the one that wanted to raise the minimum age, and he voted on this. This isn't just... And the one thing you have to remember, when a politician comes out with an initial plan, and then they go into a corner because they're getting killed, because he's getting killed. He's like... His thing is going... Well, he also has no personality. That helps, right? As a politician, you have to have personality. You saw where he wants to change his name. It's DeSantis. He wants to call it DeSantis, but you don't do it in the middle of a campaign.
Look, I am not a Trump guy whatsoever. I didn't vote for him in 2016. I didn't vote for him in 2020. I don't plan to vote for him again at all. 2024 be the nominee. And I'm an MP. I'm not even a Democrat, so don't start there. So I'm libtard, of course. But this is the thing I keep telling folks on the left side that they don't understand. The reason Donald Trump is still viable, even with all the issues, the indictments, this and that, is stuff like this. He's relatable in that, even though he's rich and he's an elite, which we all know that, he makes himself relatable. Okay? He talks to you like you're talking to someone at a bar. Okay? He has charisma. Say what you want about Donald Trump. You don't like the guy, that's fine. The dude has charisma. Okay? He has that appeal to not just that sector, but a lot of folks. Disenchanted with politics as a whole. That's attractive to people. Okay? And things like this. Look, I'm not voting for him. Never did, never will. But the dude is interesting. He is, I'll say it again, and people don't crazy saying this. He is the single most important politician in my lifetime. I have not seen a guy, in my 43 years of living, I have not seen a politician who has changed the face of politics, good or bad, wherever you stand on Donald Trump, good or bad, change the face of politics in a way that Donald John Trump has. That cannot be argued at this point now. This guy is a one-term president, and he's still viable. Okay? He had some of the lowest approval ratings in the history of American presidents, and he's still viable. He's been close to Teflon at this point. And for the record, with DeSantis too, also, I think look, we still have debates coming up next month. We still have the primaries, and you still have caucuses come up. So we'll see how if the proof in the pudding, if the polling matches the polling itself, if the voting in the primaries matches the polling that we're seeing here now, which I think it is going to. But one thing's clear is that I think DeSantis, overrated himself a little bit too, also because, yes, he won 4 by 20 points as governor in November. But what did I say to you guys about this also? The reason he won that, he won by big scores. And he would have won anyway without COVID, because I think, honestly, I've been saying for years now, Democrats have no presence here in the state. Democrats have no presence in the states whatsoever. But the reason why he won, a lot of folks, moderates, even Democrats, and I know this because I'm friends with a lot of people like that who are registered Democrats, who voted for Joe Biden in 2020, okay, voted for Hillary in 2016, that voted for DeSantis because of the way he handled COVID. He allowed people to make their money to go to their jobs, okay, and that went a long way. Business owners who are not necessarily Republicans, right-wingers, but a governor who had the balls to say, no, we're going to keep the state open as much as possible, and we're going to be able to work, make money, and support your family. And that went a long way. He built a coalition that was not just on MAGA folks and white Republicans. There's a lot of Democrats who supported him. A lot. Trust me, I know a bunch of them too. I work with a bunch of them, in fact. Okay? So, but what I think happened here is I think DeSantis overplayed his hand. Because I think he realized that, I think he thought that, okay, well, I'm this popular, I'm pulling moderates and independents. Maybe I can do the same thing else to do it in an election. And the problem he ran into is the fact that, you know, he tried to be more MAGA than the MAGA king himself, Donald Trump, and he's not. And why would you vote for a MAGA wannabe when you have the real thing itself in Donald Trump? Makes no sense, right? And that's just that. And I think also too, the big thing for me personally, and I think this is also why he won't have any appeal to the general election. People like me who are independents and NPAs, is the fact that he's stuck on this woke thing. Woke. Okay, yeah, that'll play well into the right wing of the base, absolutely, but it won't play well into the general election. It won't at all. Okay, the woke thing, the anti-trans thing, and then let's face it, the presidential race is about popularity. It's a popularity contest. He doesn't have personality. He doesn't. And Donald Trump said himself, and Donald Trump's not wrong on that one. He's not personal. He doesn't have a personality. He seems kind of uncomfortable up there on a national stage. So, Trump's not wrong. Maybe he overrated himself. Maybe he did. So, anyway. Before I go, find me on Threads. You ever heard of Threads? It's a new Mark Zuckerberg, Instagram, Twitter wannabe thingy. I'm on there at Earnest_Christian. It's not bad. I don't mind it. Nice layout. I haven't really used it much. I'm still on Twitter. Haven't really used it in the same way that probably Zuckerberg want me to use it. But it's something I will see if I have room for it going forward. But you can find me on there at Earnest_Christian as well. But yeah, this Zuckerberg Elon Musk thing is going to come to a head now. You know, we heard rumors about them possibly doing a boxing match in the future. And now we have this competition now between the two social media giants now. Elon Musk is threatening to sue Zuck, for hiring his old employees. Which, by the way, I don't understand that. So you fire the employees, and then Zuckerberg hires his own employees, and are you mad about that? It doesn't make any sense. How about you shouldn't fire your own employees in the first place? All that. I don't know. Just saying. I don't know. It makes any sense at all. But that's beyond my pay grade, right? Anyway, I'm done. Get me at E27 on Twitter, at Threads at Earnest_Christian. And especially, guys, on YouTube at youtube.com/@EarnestChristian. We'll talk soon. Also, if you love pro wrestling, check my wrestling podcast at Take the Wrestling as well, too. Every Friday, we drop episodes. And other than that, we'll talk soon and later.